Let's talk about the day in the life of a writer. My solutions are the solutions that work for me, not necessarily all. So if you're interested, this is a method that works for me. I basically have two types of days. The first type of day is the drudgery administrative kind of day. And the other kind of day is what Alex Ramosi calls the maker day. So he calls them maker and manager days. The manager day is the day where you fill your calendar with all kinds of itty bitty tasks that need to be done, your 15-minute meetings, your run to the grocery store, all those kind of things that just need to get done to manage your life. And then there's the maker day where I have to block out extensive periods of time to work. Typically, I'm going to have 2 days blocked for the managerial and foundational kind of work. And then I'm going to have more days depending upon how much of the week I consume. Usually I work 7 days a week. I can have up to 5 days of my 7-day week allocated to, if not entirely, then partially making and creation time. And the reason I do that is because the creation process is where you produce the asset that ultimately gets you paid. It's contrary to a lot of writers' habits and thoughts to think of what we're producing as an asset instead of our baby. You have to develop that bifurcated mind where you understand both. One of the biggest struggles that authors have in the writer's life is that you can spend 2 years crafting your perfect book. You launch it, and because whatever reason, it doesn't click. If your work fails to click, which is like a 1 in 100 dice roll, so this is not something that's going to pay off every time. Your 1 in 100 dice roll, your work automatically clicks, catches the title, whatever, something clicks and your work sells on its own. This is heresy in the writing community, that when I say 80% of your success is going to be how you market. Because you put all that time and effort into producing your book. You finish it with a beautiful cover, you launch it, and nobody hears about it, nobody knows about it. I think Robert Kiyosaki said it best, that I don't have the best written book, I have the best selling book. We can learn from pretty much anybody. I think it was Tacitus said, it is right and important to learn even from our enemies. We need to learn from everybody around us, because everybody around us has a lesson they can teach. Robert Kiyosaki is a very good person to look at as far as managing and growing the business. Another person that I've paid a lot of attention to is Alex Ramosi, because he has very good clarity on business from a much higher level of results than I've achieved. The reason I like Alex Ramosi's maker versus manager time is clearly differentiates the two different mindsets that we need. I had mentioned that I have typically 2 days out of the 7 in the week sliced off for managerial time, where I have something that I'm grinding through or a bunch of smaller tasks that I'm grinding to. Typically, a day in the life of my Monday and Wednesday is I will wake up, I will go to practice, I will train, I will be out the door at 5:20. I'll typically be back at 8:20 something, 8:30. And then I'll cool down, get something to eat, get something to drink, replenish, refresh. And then I will approach on Mondays, I approach my marketing piece. I do pay-per-click marketing professionally, so I'm pretty good at it. I'm currently working with 2 businesses, and they're doing gangbusters with the results. It's very pleasing seeing the results we've produced. Those managed accounts pay because I'm doing it professionally. The reason we're doing the managed accounts for the pay-per-click advertising is because when those accounts pay, they support the assets and programs that assist with my own writing and publication. So I commit a period of time at the beginning of the week. I manage the accounts. That's when I send out the reports, let everybody know what's going on. And then we'll monitor through the week. What we want to do is we want to make sure that we have that billing go out, because then what we can do is we can take a slice of that, pay the publishing business bills, and then we can take another slice of that and we can set aside a small promotion fund to help promote my books, my genre. I don't want to get into the advertising stuff. Effectively, it's cold advertising. Right now, I'm only talking about science fiction and fantasy work. Those two genres feeding into my stuff. So those campaigns are learning on my side. When I get into the creative side of things, ideally what I want to do is have a clean slate day. And by what I mean by that is I want to have as few interruptions as possible during the day. The reason that's important is because it takes a while to get going. And if I'm in a process where I can produce 2,000 words in an hour, and my writing goal for the day is 5,000 words, I need 2.5 to 3 hours to produce that 5,000 words of content. If you have the ability and you can effectively dictate, you can make it move faster through dictation. I don't dictate as well because I have to have the two conversations going on inside my head as characters are interacting. And that takes time for me. So I need that latency of typing stuff in, thinking while I'm typing, and then switching around to the other character's perspective. It's just how my head works. When we're doing an interview style book, it might be an hour and a half, and we'll come up with 9,000 to 11,000 words in that hour-long conversation, because then it's two people flowing, ask a question, answer a question, ask a question, answer a question, and that moves much faster, and we can capture those words much better. And then we have to go back and edit, make sure that the computer captured all the correct words, So there's an editing piece in there. So it's your production is like 11,000 words per, but then you're going to spend the next 2 hours going through and editing. So call it an average of 3,000 to 4,000 words an hour, which is still pretty good. The way I typically work is I will use a list for the pieces and parts that I need to get done. That drives a significant portion of the routine. This last Monday, we were a little bit off cycle in the house because I'm not here. And I wound up going out on my own to eat. I sat down and I filled a legal page with notes of stuff that needs to get done before the end of the month. We have about 2 weeks left in the month. And the stuff that I've laid out to get finished is fairly substantial. It's the absolute last details on the foundational stuff. Going forward, I know that I have a bunch more foundational stuff that I need to finish. But for practical purposes, foundational stuff is complete. The website is operational. We have YouTube video, got videos of the books, me blathering through the chapters. And then we have the email list sign up, which is super critical. Going back to the marketing piece. The reason why the marketing piece is 80% of your success is because when you can have conversations with people interested in your product, that's much more valuable than just going out and social media. Periodically, you can get onto a social media platform like X right now is probably the best because the interaction is smoother and there's less algorithmic interference in your posts. I post on some older platforms and I might get 1 out of 100 people interacting, whereas on X, dozens of interactions. X is much more effective, but I'm also not a cute girl, so I don't get the bonus points. Even if you're a cute young woman producing a book, is everybody there because of your book or because you're a cute young woman? If you work through social media for your management, you wind up dealing with a much higher level audience, higher in the funnel, meaning if you think about a funnel, the top is really broad, but they're also the furthest away from buying. So social media interaction is really high on the funnel, and it can be a huge time sink for the results you get. One of the major reasons are, okay, so I'm building out the email system because then we can tell the story and we can interact with customers, we build a community. That's an investment in the future. Every day that I'm doing the management kind of pieces where I'm building stuff for publication, it's guided by the long-term goals. So I'll have the long-term goals and I'll sit down and I'll have those in my head. Then I'll get my notepad out and write down a list of stuff I gotta get done before the end of the month. That allows me to organize my thoughts. And it overcomes the challenge of getting lost. So if you don't know where you're going, you're never going to get there. That's why the overarching goals that I mentioned follow into the subordinate tasks of how do we get to these? Oh, I have to make a left turn on this stop sign. I got to go straight until I hit the light. I need to make a left at this light and I need to get onto the highway. I need to make a right on the highway. The basic instructions and directions, the sequential things that you need to do when you're producing something turn very easily into a list. And you can checklist a lot of what you do so you don't get lost ultimately. If it falls into your routines, one of the biggest challenges you're going to run into is the whole getting lost thing. If you can overcome the getting lost and stay on task, stay on target, you're not going to waste your time. And that's very important because the more time we can commit to the creation of our ultimate asset, which is our work, our video, whatever our asset is, the better off we're going to be. Once we have that foundation in place where we are in the process of communicating effectively with potential customers, and we've produced that email list and that foundational stuff, the assets we produce during our maker time are super valuable. If you have that 2 years where you produce that perfect book, what's that worth in sunk cost or traded wages? If the average income is $34,000 per person and you spend 2 years, that's like $68,000 that book needs to be worth. You need to make $68,000. I don't mean total sales. You need to put $68,000 in your bank just to get repaid for those 2 years you invest in your work. It's super important to both work quickly and effectively. That's why I organize things like that. Another challenge people have is distractions. It's not just ourselves getting lost. The distraction of somebody walking in and say, hey, you, go to the store. We need ketchup. We need toilet paper. We need something or other for the lawn. Those kind of hey yous and people walking in, you're in the middle of that writing state and you get stopped, it's going to take time to get back on target. If I have a 3-hour block to write and it's taken me an hour to get myself focused, to get through my edits and my process of getting to where I'm back in that flow state, and somebody comes in and disrupts, that's a big deal. It halts your work for however long this hey you takes place. And then you got to come back and restart your time. The distractions are dangerous. They really divert and derail what we're working on. As far as the routines go, on the writing days, I try to schedule those on days when I don't do training in the morning. Training in the morning leaves me very tired. So if I can set my Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, I'll have lawn mowing on Sunday and practice midday. Try to write Saturday, like 3 o'clock until 6. Sunday, I'll try to finish the lawn as early as possible and then knock out 3 or 4 hours with writing in the afternoon. Again, trying to finish by 6, maybe 7, because we want to make sure that we eat properly and do all the human maintenance things. When we're putting those routines together, it's going to develop over time. We'll figure out what works best for us. What works best for me may not work best for everybody else. Typically, when I am in serious content production mode and I have a book and I'm blasting through that book as fast and as hard as I can, my day for that maker time is broken into 3 phases. The first phase is the wake up and reorientation to the process of the book. What will happen is, first phase at the wake up, I'll go in and I'll start rereading my material. Keeping in mind, I'd probably be waking up. The very first phase, I have to reread my material to make sure I'm in the right spot in the book, in the story. Then there's going to be a content production phase. Typically, my endurance level is pretty high. So when I say I'll work for 2 to 3 hours in a day, I'm undershooting what I am capable of. The disruptions, distractions, and challenges typically are the ones that stop me from fulfilling that multi-hour production time. Somebody will call, I'll get, hey, you, whatever. I'll finish that first phase, reorienting my brain to the story, figuring out, yes, I am in absolutely the correct part of the story because I don't want to add 4,000 words and realize that I'm in the wrong part and I've just re-explained something. That's a wasted day. Bad juju. Potentially a challenge if you allow that out of control. The second part of the routine is a major production period. That's you're in the flow state, you're knocking words out. Here's my 4,000 words for the day. Here's my 7,000 words for the day. Those are good days. Your brain ends up tired and squishy at the end of it, but you look back and you're like, yes, I'm awesome. Then what'll happen is I'll typically be pulled away for lunch, typically for dinner. So we'll have family dinner if we can arrange it. And then there's movie time because family time. After movie time, I typically go to sleep later because I don't sleep as much as I should. When I am in serious content mode, I will reread everything I wrote during the day and do edits. And the reason I do that, rereading and edits, and I do not take in other people's content, because I want to be the number one and only thing in my head when I go to sleep. The bonus section that happens when I'm unconscious is the back brain. The unconscious works on the story. So when we loop back to that first phase in the morning, after reading my own work, my brain works on it while I'm asleep. I wake up the next morning, I'm back to work with new material in my head because the back brain has taken things forward. It's thought things through while I was unconscious and sleeping. A minor challenge from that is when you end up with good material in your head, but you have something else in the calendar. Waking up with a solid piece of story in your head and then heading out to train for 3 hours, coming back and converting that into work knocks you off cycle. And that's just a me thing. And I'm sure there's somebody out there who can do 2 hours of getting choked to come back and go right into writing. Not me. I need time to adjust. Part of my poor scheduling is Monday and Wednesday are my administrative days. I think I probably need to organize those days, Monday and Wednesday, or Monday, Tuesday, and then I have maker days after that. So basically, the beginning of the week, I get rid of all of my administrative tasks, and that gives me 5 consecutive days where I don't have interference. I don't have other tasks that I've imposed on myself. If I can assemble my administrative stuff into a tighter block of time on my calendar, I think that'll probably make things more efficient for me. There's some other minor tasks scattered around the calendar. This is really a challenge. I'm 99% sure that I'm going to sunset those commitments. I'm just going to let them expire and I'm not going to continue with them. As far as a day in the life of a writer goes, the only experiences that I can share are mine, and I'm not normal. There are plenty of people who talk about what they do, but those things may or may not be where they're really getting their results from. So you never really know exactly how things are connected. It's really difficult to get a solid feel for how someone else works. I don't want to color outside the lines and speak for someone else. This is what works for me. The challenges can be mitigated as long as we're aware of them. The challenges are losing sight of our goal and disruptions. I've got 2 types of days, maker day and I've got the managerial day. The maker days is when I produce new content, new assets, and build my assets. And the managerial days are the days when I get things done to make money directly or to manage the pieces and parts that are associated with the business. And those are fairly low impact as long as they're scheduled. They work pretty well. Unexpected moments, the hey yous, put them into the distraction column. If you know something is coming, schedule it. Put it on the schedule and work around it. Unexpected moments fall into the distractions category. If we can mitigate those by planning them out earlier, by knowing that we have to go to the grocery store every 2 weeks and putting it on the calendar, that'll help clean things up, especially if you can stick that into one of your managerial days. Because sacrificing your maker days where you're producing new content, that's costly. It's ultimately costly. So those are the thoughts on that. I hope it helps somebody. Have a great day.